Hey y'all, thanks for joining me. I wanted to let you in on a little bit of a sneak peek for what's coming down the pipeline this year with ASF of Alabama. We're going to be making some changes that will affect how we do recruitment, and we want you as our current fellows and our fellows for life to be the first to know about these changes. So here we go. Let me show you what's going to be happening. All right, so the first thing I should mention is that this is something that we are going to be piloting. We don't know if we will stick with it beyond this year, but this is what it's going to happen for the 2020-2021 class. All right, so first I should say that there's two main changes that are coming. The first one is that we are going to be operating off of a 15-month calendar rather than a 12-month calendar, meaning that we will actually start the fellowship year in January. You all obviously started in April, but we're going to push it back and have that extra 3 months of January, February, and March of 2020. And I'll tell you sort of what will be involved in that and why we decided to do that. But the other big change is that the project selection, the phase of an applicant actually saying, you know, this is the unmet need that I've identified, this is what I want to do to change it, these are my outcomes that I'm seeking and my community partner. All of that is happening after the application phase, which I know is like, whoa, that's really big difference. So again, let me give you a little bit more background. So we noticed this past year in particular that we had a lot of great, really I should probably say recruits, not applicants, but a lot of great recruits that we were expecting to apply who for various reasons chose not to apply. And that really got us thinking about, you know, what are all the barriers that students face in making that decision between, you know I'm interested, I've expressed interest, and I've done these initial steps to prepare myself, and then I don't submit an application. So we just did a lot of reflecting about that. We also realized that by connecting applicants with, or I should say, by connecting recruits with community partners, we were pulling in our community stakeholders and getting them really invested in a process, and then would sometimes disappoint them if someone that we thought was applying chose not to. We also realized that we were asking a lot of our applicants, again, all those things I just mentioned, identifying, accurately identifying needs and looking for baseline data to determine metrics for success and what would be the outcomes that you'd be seeking and what strategies would you use, like what evidence-based practices are out there that could be effective to get the change that you want. So there's a lot of teaching and coaching that we were missing out on the opportunity to provide. And even though maybe I offered that to applicants, it was done less consistently. So we want to try and capture those opportunities to better teach and also better network our fellows. And then I guess because of some of that, those kind of misfires, I was spending a lot of time and energy on people who ultimately decided not to apply, or in some years, decided to apply but weren't selected by our council. And so we just want to try and funnel our energy into those who are going to follow through with applying and be selected. So here's what the new timeline will look like. Essentially, recruitment is pretty similar to what it has been. It's just shortened. So we're still going to be, we already are, in fact, doing some recruitment events, and we'll continue those. I think the height of those will be in September and October. But as soon as classes get back in session in August, we'll be getting started. The application and selection process will obviously be earlier. So instead of a February deadline, we're now working from an early November deadline. That is the application deadline you see there, November 4th. And then that'll allow us to do our interviews prior to the week of Thanksgiving. So before people head off for any kind of fall break, or Christmas break, they will have been interviewed and been selected. So we should be able to notify everyone by, December. And then what that leaves us is with that extra time, which I'm just calling here phase 1. So January through March of 2020, and that's where we'll be able to really take an earlier and deeper dive into the social determinants of health to better, give now fellows, not just applicants, but give our fellows a chance to really think about things like adverse childhood experiences that research shows are early correlates to later poor health outcomes. It'll give us a better chance to dive into things about logic models to better understand, how the various activities lead to certain outputs and outcomes, and we'll be able to do, I think, a better job of pointing people towards evidence-based strategies for addressing certain needs. And so that's a lot that's going to be added, topics that were either covered in, smaller ways or maybe not even covered at all in our earlier versions. So that will be phase 1. That also means that our orientation retreat is moving to January 2020. I'll mention that again later. But then basically the program in phase 2 will not be changing much. So that still leaves us April 2020 until April 2021 for the fellows to do their project planning, implementation, and evaluation, and for us to cover all the other learning objectives. So there are a lot of things that aren't changing. We want to make sure that this is still fellow-led, that the students are the ones getting to decide what they're passionate about and how they want to make a difference. They are still designing the projects. They are not stepping into existing volunteer roles, so it's still really important that they get that opportunity to learn by doing what it takes to plan and execute a new project or something that's expanding something that exists. We are not expanding the number of hours. If anything, I think this will give people maybe a little bit more flexibility and time to extend out and get those 200 hours of service completed, because presumably we can maybe get people better positioned to be starting in May or June or July, where before they might have still been in more of that planning phase. You can still do it individually or with a partner, and it's obviously really important to us that this is interdisciplinary and interinstitutional, and we actually think we'll maybe be able to recruit a more diverse group of students just because there are some groups that maybe have been less apt to apply the model that we have, and we're hoping that this might incentivize them to apply now. So I want to tell you real briefly a few opportunities that you have to be involved in this. I mean, we just want everyone to be aware and to be able to spread an accurate message of what recruitment will look like for the upcoming class. If you're a current fellow, we'd love for you to even be thinking as the year goes on, but be thinking about what are some ways that your project could be extended, because there will be overlap between your group and the 2020 group in that January, February, March timeframe. And so you'll have some opportunities to come and participate and essentially, lay the groundwork for how your project could be extended. Obviously for everyone, but particularly the current fellows, we would love for you to be involved in the recruitment phase. That is obviously taking place at recruitment events, helping me think about, where and when we should be speaking to groups in the different schools. Any kind of help you can provide in sharing this information with all of the faculty and staff who may be in a position to tell students about the fellowship. Obviously, it's not just about spreading the word, but it's about updating people who may think they already know, and now we've got to re-inform them and re-educate them. And then speaking directly one-on-one with prospective applicants. So in all of these cases, we just want to make sure that we're sending out a consistent and accurate word about when and what people need to do. In orientation, there will be a lot more. The format will change because our focus is really going to be about assessing needs at that phase of the program. So we'll be bringing in a lot of speakers from various community organizations, and I could certainly use your help either to talk about what you did as your project or just with some of the kind of logistical things that will be happening then. And that retreat will most likely be taking place in Birmingham, not in Columbiana, where it has been more recently. But we want to be in a place that's convenient for our speakers, so we'll probably be doing that in Birmingham. And then our results statement workshop will probably still be around April. We want to give, again, that full 3 month of time for people to process information and think about where they want to focus their efforts before they have to pick and define sort of what their topic area is and what their outcomes will be. But that'll certainly be a time when, the more people we can have being involved to help critique and give feedback, the better it will be. So in closing, I just want to say thanks for being our ambassadors. You're, the best people that we have really to spread the word. And I love being able to share the stories of what you did or what you're doing. And I hope you'll continue to be those ambassadors for us and just let me know how I can help you. And if you have any questions for me or want clarity on, again, kind of why we're doing this or what we're doing, please let me know. I think the one thing my slides didn't cover is, what will be involved in the application now that all of the project details are removed. There are about 6 or 7 questions that will still allow people to talk about sort of identifying an issue area. So we're giving them a list of questions and they can pick 3 to 5. Then they are able to go off of that and talk about, why do these interest you? Or, which of them do you think is most important, and give some quick examples of how you might address it. So there are still opportunities for us to get a sense of what they're most concerned about and how they might approach a problem, but they're not committing to do any one thing. If anything, we're asking them for really brief, not well thought out ideas on multiple areas, and really just focusing more on understanding them and their backgrounds and their interest and willingness to get involved. So that's what I can tell you for now. Our application should be live in August, and so applicants or you are welcome to take a look more at all of those questions. We will still be asking for references and for a resume as well. But I guess if I had to summarize, I would say the application will be more brief and much easier to complete, but we'll still expect people to be really self-reflective about what their interests are, why they're interested in that, and what they might be able to accomplish if they were a fellow. All right, well, that's all for me. So I will stop here, but thanks again for listening, and just be in touch if I can do anything.